Okay, so the next section of the tutorial is to start trying to build up the Datagrid view. So what we want to do is customize the Datagrid view so that it only displays the ID, the first name, and the surname. And so in order to do that, we need to write some C# code in order to control the rendering of the data grid. So by default, data grid views will always render any data that's bound to them, so it'll render all the columns associated with the properties, the public properties in that particular entity. So we could leave it that way, but for this example we're going to just restrict down the view of the data to just the ID, the first name, and the surname. We're not going to display the pay. So to do that, what we need to do is basically start to have a look at this kind of code here. So what we're showing here is that there's a property called auto generate columns and we set that to false, and then by doing that what happens is that you override the ability for the data grid view to render the columns automatically, so you're taking full control of that. And so then after that we need to describe what columns we want to have included in our data grid view. So the next line is the dgv.column count, and we set that to 3 because we're going to have 3 different columns in our data grid view. And then after that we're looking at the columns section, so we're trying to describe what columns we're going to have in the data grid view. So we use the property for columns, and basically you access each individual column as if it were an array. So there's an index on each column. So the columns, the first column is the 0 indexed column, the second is the first, the third is the second index. So the first column we want is the ID, so the employee ID, we want that to be displayed as the first column. And so basically we just describe what header text we want it to be, so ID or employee ID or whatever you want it to be. And then the data property name, this is kind of important to keep the name consistent. So the data property name has to have the same name as the property name itself. So if we go back and look at what an employee is, we'll see that it's got just ID with a capital I. Okay, so back in our code behind here, we need to make sure that the ID is matching up with that property. So then for the header text for the first name, we can put in whatever we want, so it's first space name. Then for the property name, what we need to use is the actual real property name on the entity. So again, it's case sensitive, and you need to make sure that it matches up with the property in the employee class. So that's that one, and then the last one we're going to have is the surname. So then we just put in the fact that we're having a surname column. So that's that. Then what we ended up doing as well in this section was just kind of generating some code for the view. So we double clicked on that and it generated the view control, or the view event. And then inside in that, all we're doing is showing the view employee. So we're creating an instance of view employee just there, which is our new pop-up form, and then we just show dialog. And then we did the exact same thing for the add and the edit. And so just to look at those, you've got your edit here, which is creating an instance of the edit employee form, and then we just show the dialog, and the same with the add employee form, and we just show the dialog. So at this stage we're getting quite close to kind of finishing the system. We've got 2 more steps left to do. The data grid at this stage is kind of rendering correctly, so we're showing the right amount of data, and then when you click on the menu items, we're using dummy employees at the moment, but when you click on edit, for example, you'll see some data in there. So we're passing data successfully from the edit employee Windows form to the user control, and then we're being able to pull that back up as well. So the next thing we're going to do is try and extract out an employee from the data grid view. So when the application runs, the user is going to select some employee that they want to either edit or delete or do something with. So they're going to select a row, and then they're going to select something from the menu item, so we'll say edit. What we need to do there is take the data from the form1 class and pass it over to the edit employee class, and so we're going to look at how that works next. So that's it for this step.